Hi everyone. Oh, thank you so much for joining your girl. I had to take a day off just to first of all recoup, and secondly, so much was coming in fast and furious after the trial that I just could not keep up with it all. And as you know, I like to be as thorough as possible and get as much commentary and feedback and info as possible. So I had to really just take some time to absorb everything, because I knew the reaction would be strong, and it has been. It's actually been surprisingly split down the middle in the more reasonable media, and I say reasonable with a very small r. There have been some who have questioned the judgment, but there is, of course, most of the tabloids, especially the Daily Fail, who have gone absolutely insane. But that was going to be expected. But I'm going to do a deep dive on everything. Like, even just now, I've just gone on to Feminagra, and there's actually even more stuff. Like, Harry's been out and about, but I haven't even gotten a chance to really even get to the stuff that Harry. So I feel like I'm just going to do a wrap up and a roundup of the fallout of the case. And then I think tomorrow afternoon I will get on to what Harry has been up to. There's also some updates. I don't know if you all know that there's been the earthquakes in Venezuela, and the Venezuelan president has been calling on Charles to release frozen assets. There's been quite a few things coming through. So, yeah, I'm gonna try and just give you as many details surrounding the case as possible. And then tomorrow we'll literally catch up on everything else outside of the case, okay? But for now, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe button. Thank you to everyone who did actually watch the last video. It's one of my most watched videos in a while. And obviously feelings running very, very high. As they would be for this, because so many people were waiting for this, and so much actually hinged on this, you know? But I think that there is some hope. And given some of the details that are coming out about the judge, maybe, just maybe, there will be some kind of retrial or appeal. Who knows? So, first things first, 1998 champion sneaking in from church. Oh, sorry, not from church, from work. I don't know why I read that as church. Kenneth, you said, I'm sure that Mr. Sherborne and his team are going through that judge report with a fine-tooth comb. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of pushback. Hey, Joseph, Bruno. Hey, Thus. Hey, Emma. Hey, Kiki. All right, let's start with, where should we start? Because there's a lot to get through. Well, let's read Harry's statement. Because I think that would be a good place to start. So, this is a statement from Harry and Baroness Doreen Lawrence. So we came to court seeking justice and accountability, but we have received neither. This judgment represents a complete reversal of the position which previous judges have taken in relation to the hacking claims successfully brought against both Newsgroup newspapers and Mirror Group newspapers, who were represented by, at the time, the judge who made this decision. And this is one of the most controversial things that has come out about all of this. The judge, represented newspapers in the past, right? Generic findings about various private investigators that were held by the courts in these parallel claims have claims to have carried out unlawful activity at the very same time in relation to similar stories and well-known individuals have been wholly ignored. The fact that this court has chosen to dismiss them represents an inconsistency which is hard to understand or reconcile with common sense or the evidence heard in the court itself. It is a complete and obvious whitewash, but sadly not altogether unexpected. However, the lengths to which the court has gone to exonerate the Mail is as shocking as it is totally unwarranted. When the court says there is not sufficient evidence of wrongdoing despite the documents showing otherwise, then one does wonder how justice was ever going to be achieved. One need not look past when a private investigator the Mail used actually admitted on tape to having unlawfully blagged Baroness Lawrence, or when a journalist recorded the name of the private used to find out about highly sensitive medical information that even the Mail was too worried to publish, or when another private investigator emailed one of the journalists with the actual British Airways seat number and ticketing details for a young girl simply visiting her boyfriend in return for payment. It feels like there's one rule for the newspapers and another for the claimants. Indeed. While the claimants present evidence, Mail journalists simply gave denials, and the court chose uncritically to believe them, even in the face of inconsistencies, contradictions, and blatant untruths that were obvious to neutral observers in court. Chose uncritically to believe them, even in the face of inconsistencies, contradictions, and blatant untruths that were obvious to neutral observers in court when compared to the documents. We presented to the court evidence which we believed was compelling at the time and remains so now. We would like to thank our legal team for all their hard work and all the witnesses who were brave enough to come forward in the pursuit of justice. Elizabeth Allen, why are you saying the Squaddies should share their emails? Please, nobody share your emails. Nobody share your emails, please. I mean, where was the lie? Where was the lie in that statement? There was absolutely no lie. And I think that Harry and the claimants should be very, very proud of themselves. And they took it as far as they could. So many people had to drop out because it's just so expensive. And that's the other thing. It shouldn't be. That is the other very controversial thing about all of this. And the tabloids know this. They know that they had the upper hand in all of this. Now, this is the front, page of the Daily Fail, vindicated. I mean, it's funny, when Meghan won her case, they didn't put this on the cover. You know, the disrespect should be, so the apology should be as loud as the disrespect. They didn't do this when Meghan won her case, did they? But they absolutely made sure, front good on page, to put this here. Now, they're trying to say that Harry has to pay upwards of 50 million, which is rubbish. That I don't believe that that is the case. Even Grok, who gets hella things wrong, even says that costs were capped earlier and the recoverable costs were about 4.5 million. And that Harry's share is actually only a fraction, around 60k. That all of those, you know, people who came forward together, they can all more than afford that, actually. So Daily Fail, even still lying, you know, still lying and still being sneaky. And let me just put the, you know, picture of everyone who was part of this trial. I don't believe that this is the end. I really don't. And I don't think it should be. Because these tabloids need to be held account. And of course, there has been pushback by one of the former editors of the Daily Fail, Paul, I think it's Paul Drake. I don't even know how to say this guy's name. I'm just going to call him Paul D. Mr. D for Dick. Paul D. He gave a whole 4-minute speech in response to Harry's case. This is one of the men, I'm going to put him on the screen, who was banned from the Abbey. One of the men who has shaped British tabloid culture for the worse. Him, Piers Morgan, all coming out now. I actually believe that he may actually regret giving this statement, because most people didn't even know really who he was before he decided on behalf of Associated Newspapers to give this whole 4-minute statement. So since he wants to be famous, we're going to make him famous. We're going to make Paul D famous. Do you know, funny how you don't see Jonathan Rothermere actually coming out and making a whole statement, do you? This other guy on the other side, I don't actually know his name, but I recognize his face. He's been part of the tabloid spin for decades. He's one of the old timers as well. But I do find it funny how Paul decided to come out and give a whole 4-minute statement. You don't see Jonathan Rothermere anywhere. I'm sure Jonathan Rothermere will be at tea with Camilla, because they're best buddies. But he seems to have been smart enough to hide his face. So let's have a listen to what Paul D has to say. I'm going to analyze what he says, because he also comes after Baroness Lawrence. But in terms of how the tabloids have tried to frame this, they're trying to frame it entirely, almost entirely around Harry. They know that they can do that because they know that they can try and paint this picture of, you know, the prince throwing a tantrum on behalf of his wife. That's kind of how they've been framing it. But it's a lot more difficult with somebody like Sadie Frost. You know, they were going after her personal medical details. I think she'd had a miscarriage or something like that. Liz Hurley's medical details. And I think with Doreen Lawrence, also because of the racially charged nature of that, they've been a little bit more held back. So let's have a listen to this, and I'm going to give commentary as it goes along.
Accused the Mail, in a blaze of publicity, of placing bugs in homes, cars, cafes and landline phones. We described those charges, some related to stories that were over 30 years old, as lurid and preposterous. Today, in what was a momentous victory for the Mail, the High Court dismissed every single one of the 97 claims. That.
Now, a lot of people have responded in shock that all of the claims were dismissed, and how unusual it is that all of the claims for all of the claimants were dismissed. Every single one. Given that Harry's other similar case, they did have some claims that were upheld. And that's why Harry won his case with MGM and Murdoch's lot. So a lot of people have mentioned how unusual this actually is.
That is an overwhelming vindication of our journalism. The Mail's famous front page naming 5 thugs as Stephen Lawrence's murderers could have seen me jailed for contempt of court. Instead, it triggered the Macpherson inquiry and the eventual jailing of 2 of the killers. Stephen's father, Neville, says he owes the Mail everything. Why Baroness Lawrence, for whom we have always had profound respect and sympathy, chose to turn on both the paper and the brilliant...
I don't know what the relationship is between Baroness Lawrence and the husband, but or if he's the former husband now, I don't know. But it seems, okay, from what he said, I have to look into this. The fact that he hasn't actually been part of this, I don't know. I don't know if the press got to him. I hear that Paul actually hired him to be a carpenter in his house or something. But there is, in the evidence that was shown, apparently these editors befriended Doreen Lawrence only to turn their back on her and cause her a lot of discomfort. And I'm sorry, but I believe Doreen's words over a tabloid rat. If she says these people were being shady, I believe her.
Porter, who campaigned for justice for her son for over 2 decades, is something I will never be able to comprehend. Prince Harry wrote a sad book which boasted about his killing of 25 Taliban, his drug-taking, and, in cringe-making detail, how he lost his virginity. There isn't...
I mean, what does that have to do with the fact that you use unlawful means to get information? Harry talked about all of that consensually in his book. This is about privacy and what we are allowed to tell the public and how we want to tell the public if we wish. All of that information was given willfully and with Harry's consent in spare. This case rested on the fact that you used unlawful means to gather information about people. So now he's even trying to dismiss the whole concept of consent. Because all of that information in spare, Harry put out consensually.
A laundry in the cosmos big enough to wash all the dirty linen he has aired about his own family. For him to complain about his privacy being invaded.
And you know, nobody would know about the dirty linen about the royal family like this guy and Piers Morgan and all the rest of them. And he is so mad that Harry is bold enough to actually write about all of his own dirty linen so that the likes of these people on the screen can't use it against him. Please remember that this is another reason they are absolutely furious at Harry and Meghan. Because there's nothing now that they can use against use against Harry, and there's nothing they've ever been able to use against Meghan because her entire reputation is squeaky clean. They cannot find evidence that Meghan ate a worm as a kid. they have not been able to find one single thing about this woman, a woman who worked in Hollywood for years. And it makes them seethe because they have that over the head of the other members of the royal family. They don't have it over Harry and Meghan. They can't threaten them with anything. In fact, they had to go out of their way to try to pay people to lie. They're so unafraid of being sued, they were willing to pay people to lie about Meghan.
Takes not just the biscuit, but the whole tin. Poor Harry. I feel sorry for the way a confused and angry young man has been drawn into this case. The bitter irony is that his mother, Diana, liked the Mail. We were her paper. We took her side in her acrimonious breakup with Charles. She and I would speak and meet. The Mail's superb royal reporter was her friend and confidant.
I want to read something about what he just said there because I don't think he realizes it's very much an own goal. So let me just read this. Aside from how tacky and staggeringly unprofessional this entire statement is, isn't this just a self-own? If true, he's admitting his MO was to work with Diana against Charles in his coverage, admitting to biased journalism like it's the standard, which clearly still goes on even today, if Camilla's inner circle is anything to go by. This alone makes him unreputable. The bitter irony is that his mother Diana liked the Mail. She would speak to us and meet the Mail's superb royal reporter. Exactly. And can you, first and foremost, can you even blame Diana? Because what else did she have? Bless her, she didn't realize that she was actually just playing with the same wolves who are playing both sides, right? And who are now trying to play the same games with her son, who decided, I'm not playing the games. But he's just admitting that this is all part of the game. Ideally, you should not take one side at all. So he's just admitting that the entire system is a farce. He's admitting to biased journalism.
The truth is that this trumped-up action, which has cost well over £50 million and wasted a huge amount of valuable court time, should never have been brought to trial. That it did raises profoundly disturbing questions about the conduct of elements of the legal profession. Today's verdict is not just a victory for Associated's magnificent journalists.
I mean, indeed, it raises a lot of questions. Like, why does one have to have so much money to be able to bring the press to account? Why are press barons and these tacky tabloid journalists so powerful in the first place? Why do they sit so closely to other people in powerful positions in the country? Why did a case like this take so long to come to court? Yeah, it raises a lot of questions. Why was the judge in this case somebody who previously represented tabloid media? Indeed, it raises a lot of questions. Just not the questions that that he's trying to make it out it does.
Several of whom have had a terrible toll imposed on their health and lives, but a free press generally.
Good. I am so glad these tabloid journalists have suffered. But I actually don't believe that they have, because I think all of them are narcissists. I think they're emotionless narcissists. If they have an extra wrinkle or two and an extra grey hair, good. But do I think that they actually suffered, or that their health suffered, or their mental health suffered, their physical health suffered? No. I think they're all narcissists. They don't care who they hurt. They just care about their money and their bottom line and getting the daily gossip. They feel so special because they have the insider gossip on the royal family and celebrities.
Make no mistake, this was a conspiracy supported by hacked off, to destroy a paper, financed by the orgy-loving racist Max Mosley and involving the actor.
Hugh Grant actually pushed back on that statement that Max Mosley himself is not a racist, but Max Mosley's father is. Just for your information, according to Hugh Grant.
It was also a sinister bid to resuscitate Leveson II and impose statutory regulation on the press, which, even now, is rearing its ugly head in Labour's media green paper. Some of the allegations...
And notice how he goes straight for Labour. Holding the press accountable is not a left or right issue. It is a neutral issue. You should not be able to hack into someone's medical records to know whether or not they're pregnant, they had an abortion, had a miscarriage. I mean, this is some of the things that they were doing. And he can't even bring himself to admit that whether or not they got that information unlawfully, it was incredibly tacky. It was tacky and unethical to even try to be looking into those type of stories, publishing those type of stories. That's the type of culture that people like this created. And the tabloid readers who also need to take responsibility for this, that's the type of stuff that they were looking for, fueling the demand.
made by Harry's lawyers against the Mail involved Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. They were rejected by the court. But remember, it was the power of the Mail's journalism that not once, but twice, resulted in Mandelson being sacked as a minister. And it was the Mail on Sunday's exclusive picture of Prince Andrew with his arm around 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre in Ghislaine Maxwell's home that ultimately resulted in justice for Epstein's underage victims. Such justice.
They had those images for some time. And to try and take credit for that, when the Daily Fail is one of the most misogynistic, sexist tabloids, second probably only to The Sun, that literally has tits on its third page, to me is disgusting. Because it is publications like the Daily Fail that contribute to a culture that objectifies women and girls, that encourages casual sexism, that grows into the wider culture that we have, the way they treat female celebrities. This all goes into a cycle. So to try and somehow take credit for that, to me, is just ridiculous. I give credit only to the victims for being brave enough to speak out. They only publish what they feel is safe and when it suits them. When it suits the story that they want to put out. They don't publish stuff like this truly when it's in the public's interest or to help victims. They don't. That is a lie. That is rubbish. I think it's disgusting for a man like this to sit here and say that and to dismiss the bravery of those victims. If the Daily Fail really wanted to bring very powerful men to account, we'd be seeing it every single day on their paper. To the contrary, they are often part of smear campaigns against female celebrities and creating a culture of sexism and misogyny towards whether it's women in entertainment, female politicians. I mean, I remember there was a headline where it was Theresa May, first female prime minister, it was Theresa May and Nicola Sturgeon, who was the Scottish PM. And the front page of the Daily Mail was talking about their legs and their sexy legs. Two female politicians, the highest seat of power in the country, and the Daily Fail has a front page cover about their legs.
Justice only happened as with Stephen Lawrence, because of the actions of a free press.
And who is arguing that exposing people like in the Stephen Lawrence case or exposing Andrew and Epstein, that is what Prince Harry or Elton John or any of these people are trying to go after? In fact, that's the type of journalism that we wish you would do more. That's what we actually want from the press. Nobody's going after you for exposing Andrew and Epstein. We'd be very, very grateful if you would do that more often. What is completely unacceptable is prying into people's private lives in a way that is actually not within the public's interest. It was not within the public's interest to know about Sadie Foster's pregnancy or whatever was going on with her pregnancy. And trying to conflate those two things is ridiculous. We want respectable journalism that is in the public's interest. Lisa, you said, funny thing is, the tabloids work both ways. Since they now feel invincible, they can pretty much declare open season on the royal family. This might be the final nail. Exactly. And this is what the royal family don't seem to understand. Them still being in bed with the likes of the Daily Fail. This is what they don't understand. There will come a time, and us in the spaces have predicted this for a very long time. There will come a time when these tabloids will turn on them. They will turn on William and Kate. They will turn on Camilla and Charles. If the story is hot enough, they will. Trust they will. They always do. They act like Harry's the only one suing them. They like to say 50 million was all on him and not the others in the lawsuit. I think the 50 million was also on. I don't think the 50 million is actually an accurate number, and I don't think that's just. I don't think that's the payments being made. I think it also includes other things like court time, other stuff. Yeah, so that was this loser's take. This is the same guy. Apologies, I don't have the screenshot here, but if you go on my Instagram, it is there. One sec, let me just read you. One moment. What did he say? Ah, yes. So these are quotes from him in a speech to the Society of Editors in November of 2008. He said, and I quote in his speech, "Dull doesn't sell newspapers, boring doesn't pay the mortgage, sensation sells papers," right? And that's why he posted about Andrew and Epstein. That's why he posted about Mandelson. Not because he actually cares that it's in the public interest for us to know things like that. It's because of the sensation aspect. Now, some of the journalists, so I'm not going to call them journalists, tabloid rats, who have been caught up in this court case, spoke. So Katie Nicholl was one of them. It's what she had to say.
I always try to see the good in people. I truly do, and I don't necessarily think it came from Harry essentially being malicious himself. You know, he has had success in the courts against the papers before. There has been phone hacking at other papers. It didn't happen at the Mail, but I think he has been misguided. I think he's been egged on by Hacked Off and others, and it has backfired most spectacularly on him.
Are you proud of the stories that you wrote?
You know, Justin, I'll be really honest with you because I think it's a really important question. Very proud of my career as a journalist. I'm very proud of the books I've written. Am I proud of every single story? No. No, I'm not. Certainly some of them were intrusive and veered into deeply private territory. Doesn't mean they were gotten illegally. They were not. Those stories were given to me by contacts, genuine sources, real people. As I've said, and as I said in my witness statement, I did journalism the old-fashioned way. Do I feel proud of all of those stories? No, but you have to remember that we're talking about stories that I wrote 20 years ago when the media landscape was completely different, when writing about people's marriages breaking down and their health issues and everything else.
You know, it's giving I was just following orders. Oh, that's just how it was. Everybody in the schoolyard was jumping off a cliff, so I jumped off the cliff too. Pathetic. It tells me that you never actually wanted to be a journalist, you just wanted to be a gossip rat. And let's be very clear about the difference between the two.
Health issues and everything else was just part of the tabloid fodder. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm a different person 25 years on, having gone through many life-changing experiences myself. But that's being intrusive when it comes to someone's private life, writing about Prince Harry and his girlfriends and his relationships. Of course he didn't like it. But it was part of the media landscape at the time. And I think that context is really, really important too.
I think that somebody should start a tabloid about tabloid writers and start interviewing their friends and their associates. I think somebody should do that because apparently you won't get sued for it. So should we do that? Should we crowdfund? So we can start a paper about the tabloid rats themselves. Apparently the going rate is about 3,000 to 4,000 for a tip-off. So let's crowdfund to start tipping off their friends and family to tell us all the juicy gossip. Who snorts the most cocaine in Fleet Street? Would love to know. Because apparently it's perfectly fine and he won't get sued for it. So let's just start making up nonsense about Katie Nicholl and Camilla Tominey and all of them. I also wanted to play this from Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party. I actually forget that she's a leader of the Conservative Party. I'm sorry, I do. This is what she had to say, and what she had to say really just proves that the entire establishment is in on it. And I've got something else to show you as well, actually, just following what she says. But let's listen to this first, and then we'll analyse, and then I'm going to show you something.
What does Prince Harry need to take from that case and the way he was defeated yesterday, Kemi Badenoch?
I feel very bad for him. You know, as leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition, obviously there's only so much I can say about the royal family. The King is my boss. I think the King is fantastic. But I do think that Prince Harry has been receiving some bad advice. It's very tricky.
There's only so much I can say about the royal family, but I do...
a little bit...
Sorry, she says, there's only so much I can say about the royal family, and then she proceeds to give her opinion on this case, saying that Prince Harry has been given bad advice. How does she know? She's not Prince Harry's lawyer. Was she shown the court documents? How would she know that Prince Harry has been given bad advice?
Of it as a member of parliament. I cannot imagine what it's like to have had to live in the public eye from birth, but this is not the way to do it. Attacking the free press is not the way. I think he's been given some very bad advice. I feel very sorry for him.
Notice that she's pretty much parroting the same thing that Paul Dacre said. She's pretty much parroting the same thing. They've all been given the same script. Harry's been advised poorly. Also, she accuses Harry of attacking the free press, which is not what happened. But she also says that she can't say anything about the King because the King is her boss as a member of parliament. So it's like in one breath she's saying, well, I can't really say anything about the King. Therefore, you're basically saying I don't really have freedom of speech because of our king, but then she accuses Harry of attacking the free press. Girl, please make it make sense. The math isn't mathing here. And this right here, I didn't know about this. Thank you to the online investigators who got this. So there was a summer party at Spencer House, which was run by Rupert Murdoch. And guess who was there? The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and his wife, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, who was just speaking there, and her husband, former Health Secretary Wes Streeting, Number 10 Chief Staff Morgan McSweeney, Reform Treasury spokesperson Robert Kenrick, so basically all of the parties, former Secret Intelligence Service officer Richard Moore. Why does Richard Moore, our former Secret Intelligence chief, need to be at a summer party with Rupert Murdoch? Former Cabinet Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of the worst people in Parliament, if you ask me. YouTuber Piers Morgan. Listen, I'm a YouTuber too, but there's something about them calling Piers Morgan a YouTuber that makes me chuckle. And DMG Media Editor-in-Chief, that's the Daily Mail Group, Paul Dacre. All of them together, all in bed together. The entire establishment. This is why I'm telling you, Harry cannot trust anyone, and they should have never ever allowed Invictus to be in Birmingham. I wouldn't put it past these people to make something happen at Invictus. I honestly wouldn't put it past them. Because they're all in it together now. This was the conversation that was over at the Piss Moron show. Let's have a listen to this. And then I'm also going to play you what was being said on Loose Women, because Loose Women had a completely different take on it.
I mean, is this marriage going to survive?
Yes, because they need each other. I've never believed the divorce theory. But the whole point about this bringing them back is no one trusts them.
Right.
It was Meghan who lied about the whole marriage,
yeah,
about the whole way in which she was treated.
Yeah.
It was her absolute dishonesty and always her...
I swear to gosh, Tom Bauer, I'm so glad that Facts and 2 Cents gave him a piece of her mind, because what does he even mean that Meghan lied about the whole marriage? What are you even talking about? It's like they just say whatever they want to say.
To go back to Hollywood and capitalise.
Well, what were the two things that never appeared in his book, right? Racism and the suicide stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which were the two things I challenged in real time on Good Morning Britain, and I had to leave for disbelieving it, right? They never appeared in his book. It was like it never got said, right? She was so suicidal that apparently she went to a senior person at the palace who said she couldn't get any help.
Human resources.
Even though he was the head of a mental health charity. It was obviously horseshit.
You're right, but it's much, much worse than that, because all her interviews, all her stuff has been to destroy the very thing that Paula says we should now welcome her back. The last thing we should do is welcome Meghan back. The thing they should do...
They made their bed in Montecito. Get on with it. But if I was... I mean, Katie...
I mean, I haven't heard Meghan say that she wants to be welcomed back. Welcomed back by people that hate her? She's riding along for her husband. I don't think she wants anything to do with these people. At best, she wants her children to know about their father's birth country. But Meghan's been done with you lot. You have a one-sided battle in your mind, an obsession with her.
Should the title... We've seen with Andrew, you can remove the titles. It can be done. There's this idea before...
Well, they haven't actually removed the titles in the sense of it going through Parliament. A lot of these titles are just... They don't really mean much anyway. But in terms of removing the titles going through Parliament, they haven't done that with Andrew. He's still a prince. Another thing about these tabloid rats is that the main reason, let's just be clear, that they want Harry and Meghan to have their titles removed is because that process is going to be a lengthy process. And it is going to give them not even weeks, maybe even months of stories in their tabloids. That's the reason why they keep screaming and yelling, remove Harry and Meghan's titles. It's for their gain. They know full well if Harry and Meghan lose their titles today, to the people who like them, to the people who follow them, to the people who buy Meghan's products, to the people who shop for Invictus, they don't give a flying F about royal titles. And they know this. They know this. Maybe it might hurt Harry and Meghan personally to have those titles removed, because as far as they're concerned, and they said it, that's their family name. But at this point, if it's me, I'm cutting all ties. And reminder, Harry and Meghan said themselves in the Netflix documentary that they offered to give up the titles. So I don't know why these people keep going on about remove the titles that Harry and Meghan offered to give up. What they want is a situation where Harry and Meghan have the titles removed so it looks like they're being humiliated when they've already offered to give up the titles. Now, Charles so far has been smart enough not to go down that route. But I believe that William will be stupid enough to do it. But just to be clear, these tabloid rats, they just want a story. That's why they keep going on about remove the titles, because they'll write about it for months. It's all going to be going down in Parliament if they do that. On Loose Women, they had a much different take. They had a much more neutral take, actually. Let's have a listen to this.
Day for Prince Harry yesterday. This is day 2 of his trip back here. He found out that he'd lost his court case against the Associated Newspapers Group, owners of the Daily Mail. Now, the legal action alleging phone hacking and illicit medical record access was brought alongside 6 other prominent figures, including Sir Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley and Baroness Lawrence. It's been reported that Harry was visibly angry and upset, and he later called the result a whitewash. Not really been his week so far, Janet. You know, a lot of front pages. Obviously, it was like, is he coming? Isn't he coming? Is he staying in Buckingham Palace? Isn't he? But this is a big thing for him, and he must be devastated, because this has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, I do feel that the judgment was very, very unusual, because there wasn't just Prince Harry involved in this. As you've said, there were a lot of people with a lot of claims against Association newspapers. And so what I find extraordinary is that Mr. Justice Nicklin decided to sling out the whole lot. I mean, that's almost unprecedented.
97, I think, wasn't it? 97
yeah, it's
allegations.
It's unprecedented. So all I would say is, you know, I think that we will see this continue, that if not with all the claims, I think the vast majority of them will go back into court, and they'll go back into the Court of Appeal with a different judge or judges presiding. They'll go to a higher court, and it won't be the end of it. And to the question, do I feel sorry for Prince Harry? Well, losing something like that so publicly is awful, but my advice would be just to move on and you know, work out what you are going to fight about in the future. Obviously, it's not easy. His wife and children are on holiday in Europe, and he's here alone, and he's got to do a lot of public engagements this week. But he is going to be the subject of a lot of press attention, whether he likes it or not.
Whether he likes it or not. But he has become the face of this, as we've said. There were other celebrities or people involved, you know, Sir Elton
Yeah, but
John.
he went into court and was there personally in court, drawing the press to it.
Yeah.
And I would say there's a lot of celebrities that would have been waiting for that verdict and also are kind of blindsided by it. I don't think it sits right with me as somebody that has been victim of a lot of intrusion throughout my career. And it's very hard to sit here and talk about that, because as somebody that uses the media and works in media, you know, it's like a double-edged sword. You know, it's all very, very well and good when you're selling a book or promoting a film or a TV show, and the minute you're going through a divorce or a breakup or something personal, you don't want to be written about. And unfortunately, I think the public sympathy is just not there, because it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. But
there is an element of that, but there's a line that shouldn't be crossed.
I think so, and there are privacy laws, and I do think they are overstepped quite a lot by the media, and I do think they should be held accountable. And I wouldn't be surprised, like Janet says, if this isn't really kind of looked at now, and we all see it, you know, they all see themselves back in court, because I can't see how that they've come to that verdict. It just, it's kind of blindsided people.
Must have had, you know, really high brow, top end barristers, lawyers, to go in and win nothing, like 97 allegations and like nothing.
Yeah.
Was very surprising to me.
And I think it does take a lot for people to get to the steps of court and to go through with
very expensive action.
Yeah, and I think that you wouldn't do it unless you really felt like you were going to have some success.
Did you feel sorry for him, Brenda?
I've said on here before, I personally understand the trauma that he's going through.
So yeah, very different opinion on Loose Women. Something that has actually just come to my mind though. The Daily Fail, who are, I think, at this point, a little bit more in bed with the royal family than Murdoch's papers. It's interesting to see how the two media giants play things very differently. The Daily Fail actually are not as averse to taking things to court or dragging things out in court as Murdoch's media group. Murdoch's media group generally like to settle before it gets to court. And that's a very interesting difference. It does make you think. Murdochs are completely trial averse. They never want any of their issues to come to trial. And they will pay. The Daily Fail, they don't seem to mind a trial. And it's almost like, because things tend to be swayed in their favour. But they've been defeated at least once. Unfortunately, not this time. Right, so that's that. Despite everything that the tabloid rats want to say, they were all outside waiting for Harry. You can see in the top image that those two women, those are both tabloid rat reporters. And at the bottom, that's Chris Shipp, and the one behind him, I believe that's from GB News. And you know, Harry has just kept it moving. Mind you, Camilla was somewhere in the United Kingdom playing poo sticks by the lake. William also had an event the same day. And they were releasing social media stuff for Kate and Wimbledon online. And the media were not paying attention to any of this, really. All attention and all eyes were on Harry and to see whether or not Meghan would pop up. And Harry, like I said, was just keeping it moving. He's here for his Invictus stuff, for his Well Child stuff, doing what he does best, connecting with the people. So Invictus has welcomed Uganda as a 26th member of the Invictus Community of Nations. He said, "We are honoured to join a network that recognises the transformative power of sport in rehabilitation, recovery, resilience and reintegration. We are grateful to the leadership of the Invictus Games Foundation for their confidence in Uganda and for partnering with us to develop sustainable programs for our veterans and serving personnel." On a Kiriyowa Kiwanuka, Minister of Defence and Veteran Affairs, Uganda. Amazing. And you know what? Harry's work with Invictus is what stands. And there's nothing they can do to take that away from him. Because they can't attack the veterans. They can attack him. It's not going to be a good look for them to attack the veterans that he helps. Legs, I still don't know how that judge didn't have a conflict of interest. Exactly. Banana courts. Banana courts with monkeys. Oh gosh. Linda. Sushi said Harry should move whatever away from the UK. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Invictus being in Birmingham anymore. Oh dear. Okay. Yeah, I've gone on for quite a bit now, almost an hour. I just wanted to do a follow-up. I don't think we've heard the last of this, folks. Because for sure, I don't know how they're going to contest that there was a clear conflict of interest with this judge and that he should have never been appointed in the first place. The King's judge, by the way. And then all of the people from the Daily Mail that are associated with the royal family. With the King himself. With the fake Queen herself. Well. Everything will come out in the weeks that follow. Right. I will wrap things up there. Thank you as always, everyone. Listen, if anything, Harry is just getting on with things. You know, he's smiling away. And that's another thing that they don't like. They can trash Harry all they want. He has a beautiful family, a beautiful life in Montecito. Let them throw a tantrum in the UK. Harry's still going to live his best life back home. Listen, they've been throwing a tantrum since Harry and Meghan left. So truth be told, why would they stop now? Right? They're bitter, 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 bitter. All right, folks, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will catch up tomorrow. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and like button on your way out. Links in the description if you'd like to drop us a donation. Be much appreciated, and we will catch up tomorrow. Ciao.